When I left him, I left everything. I didn't have any friends outside him. I had one who I had pushed away so far, I didn't know if I was gonna get her back. And so this theme of grief was, like, something that I was not dealing with.
What if story is the answer to our crises of meaning and belonging, to our impulse to heal our lives and help others, to our desire and drive to leave this world better than we found it? Now, we love good stories. In fact, we're kind of obsessed, not just with the stories themselves, but with the stories behind the stories. Their oddly perfect timing, the healing process they provoke in their authors, and their capacity to catalyze individual and collective change. And we love exploring these with writers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, healers, parents, and others. Tune in to hear these stories behind the stories and entertain with us the real possibility that whether you are a teller or a consumer, story is always offering or leading us to an answer. When Ciara Gutierrez's friend was on the cusp of stepping into an abusive relationship, she decided the only way to help her and other young girls was to write her story and show them how it starts, how it twists, and how it can end, if only they will dig deep and realize how much power they already have. Tune in to hear how Ciara quickly began writing her story and then realized her initial approach wasn't going to accomplish her true intention. You'll find out how she saw her writing process creating a mess in her new and beautiful relationship and what she did about it. And finally, you'll discover how she chose the path of healing and found other ways to share her message while life required her to step away from the book. Grab a cup of something yummy, and you'll probably need a box of tissue today while you sink into these sips of story and sanity with us. Welcome to Sips of Story and Sanity, where we talk about the stories behind the stories with authors, speakers, thought leaders, healers, parents, and more. My team, son Aaron.
Hi.
Sister Alyssa.
Hey, everyone.
And clients turned friends turned team members, Teddy.
Hi, y'all.
And Lori.
Hi, everybody.
They're all here to help me make sure we get the most delicious sips of story and sanity out of this conversation. And today is going to be amazing because we have Ciara Gutierrez, who used to be Ciara Coelho, which means she is one of my near and dear sisters and also someone who plays on this team as often as she can. After liberating herself from an abusive relationship at a young age, Ciara realized that at some point in her very young life, she had started to listen more than lead. She became determined to reclaim her power and help other young girls do the same. After becoming a certified acne specialist and clearing her acne for the first time in her life, she founded Suit Yourself and unexpectedly opened the perfect doorway to these struggling teens' hearts. Today, she is helping young girls reclaim their power by guiding and teaching them how to first reclaim their skin. Together, she and her clients are consistently learning what it means to suit yourself. Welcome, Ciara.
Hey, everyone.
So glad you're here. I'm excited to have you share some of your story today. I feel like your story was really, really important to me, not just because you're my sister, but because your story is so important for people to hear. Aspiring messengers have this idea all the time that they want to share a story about overcoming, and they get this picture about how they imagine they're going to take this message to the world and change the world with it. And oftentimes that is just not the way that it happens, at least not at first. And so I feel like you sharing your story today is going to give a lot of our listeners and viewers that like space that they need for a deep in-breath of like all is happening as it should be. So I'd love for you to help us get started by just sharing what was it that initially made you think, like, I need to share my story in a book?
Well, I remember when I first stepped out of that relationship, and I was so broken. And it wasn't until like a near and dear loved one of mine got themselves into a similar situation, and I realized that she was just steps away from making all the same mistakes and following suit in all the same ways. And I'm already getting emotional. Uh, you like want to tell your story, and then it comes to time to tell your story because this is the first time this is actually going to be seen in the world, and you just fall apart. So I think I've just been kind of falling apart already since this morning, just because it's scary. I'm scared shitless to share my story. But when that happened and I wanted to grab her out of that situation, I was inspired by my coach to write it down. What if you did write it down? Well, what if you did share it? All those what if questions we love when our coach asks us. And I was like, you're right. I could write it down. I could show the whole thing, how it was just a master of illusion who trained me, fooled me, and brought me into his clutches. And I remember getting so fired up about it because I was just like, girls need this. The world needs this. And especially this girl who I love so much, she needs this before she gets hurt like I did. And, um, here I am so many years later, story finally being shared. And look at me. It's terrifying. So what inspired me was wanting to pull somebody I really love out of a situation I got myself into really young.
Yeah. So, what about sharing the story? Because I think this is really, really important. So many people come out of situations where they're dealing with a character who is, at the very least, emotionally dangerous, right? And sometimes more dangerous than that, to whatever degree. And so, what is it for you as you're like sitting here today, putting this in a podcast? Like, you've shared it in retreats, you've shared it among friends, you've shared it with a lot of people. And yet, what do you think it is for you that is like making that little bit of anxiety, or that lot bit of anxiety today?
I've been really asking myself that for the last 24 hours. Like, why are you wanted to do this for so many years, and it's time, and the opportunity's here on this grand scale. What is going on with you? And there is just a space of vulnerability when you've walked through abuse that I think that little girl is always so afraid of being judged. Like, okay, you didn't tell when he did this, like, and you let him do this 3 times, and how did you not figure that out sooner? Like 8 years, that's kind of a long time. And so I think there's just this it's funny that I say fear of judgment because I've come to a place in my life where I really have learned to give no shits about what people care or think about me. But I think it's for the other girls who are gonna step into the same space, you know? And um and maybe it's also because this damn book needs to get out of me. Because every time there's that moment of inspiration, there's that real life thing that happens that you have to face. And so it's just, when I first stepped out to share my story, my life just turned. I mean, I outlined like the first 5 chapters so fast, it flew out of me. And then, well, we all here know the story. it really, really flipped upside down for me.
Yeah.
So I think just that knowing of when you share a piece of yourself and you step into, yes, I'm going to take that next leap of healing you really get pushed into the next leap of healing. You don't really have a way to go back. It's like you step into it, you can't go back. So
Yeah. Well, I want to set the context a little bit for the listeners and viewers who don't know you, that you were between the ages of, was it 12 to 19? You were in a relationship with an older boy who groomed you, and it ended up becoming an abusive situation. And so, at the time of the inspiration to write the book, where were you in relationship to leaving that experience?
I was right at the point where I took my power back from him. And I had tried for probably a good year to leave him. And I had called on my people and my tribes and called for support, and everybody was rooting for me, but they all just knew I had to do it. And they couldn't do it for me. So I had just stepped out of it for the final time. And he was trying everything in his power to try to convince me that I was wrong and that he would change and yada yada. And so I think that when I realized that the power was mine, that was the moment that everything shifted. And I was actually in a space with him where I was really sick. When I left him, my body didn't even know it was happening. It was like, again, I was 12 years old when I met this person, and he was significantly, he was 16 and a half or 17 when we met. And then I just kind of followed him through everything. And he was my world. He was my friends. He was everything. I didn't have a world outside him. So when I stepped outside him, it was like I was all by myself, it felt. And I was 19. I was still living at home, but there was this beautiful person who came into my life. And he was like, I remember leaving my ex's house praying in that last year, like, send me somebody. And I'd say, send me a teacher or a friend or a mentor, anybody that can show me what real love looks like, because this is really not feeling like real love anymore. And this beautiful man showed up, and he was the antithesis of this person that I was trying to get free of. And he saw me like I never saw me. And he reinforced all the things that were true that he had made me forget. He reinforced that I was beautiful, that he was so amazed by the fact that I had graduated early and was working 3 jobs, and he was just enamored by me. And this person had really made me believe that I wasn't capable of somebody being enamored by me. And so that's the point that I was at. When I left him, I was experiencing not true love, because I wouldn't say it was true love at that point. I did end up marrying that man, so it turned into true love. But I was experiencing what love is and who I believe to be our creator and our God, who that was through this person and his reinforcement of that light that was in me that I lost and that I forgot. So next question.
So you've made your grand escape, and somehow, I mean, it's this wonderful man drops into your life and starts making you feel like remember who you are, it sounds like. And you then are at the point where you're starting to have that contrast, right? Like you're experiencing the contrast between what you thought love was for these many years and what love is actually showing up to be. And then you see someone else who's in trouble and starting to believe certain things are love when they're clearly not. And so you decide to write this. So you're like building the new, barely escaping the old. And I think this is really, really important for people who, I mean, because of witnessing your journey and supporting you through this process, I've had lots of conversations with people who want to get started writing their books. And I can always hear like the readiness isn't there. You know, it's too soon, it's too tender, there's still much to process, which the writing helps with, but sometimes you need more than just the writing. Sometimes you need the new relationship to help you like sort that out and ground that new experience of love like into your bones, so that when you're writing, when you have to go back to that little girl and start writing from there, you can go with that anchored new experience. And so you get started with the writing and it seems to be moving pretty quickly, right? Like outlining and putting it all together, and you're really excited. I think this was the time where you were, did you start writing before the retreat or you did? Okay.
I started writing the next day after we had that conversation about, well, how can you help this girl?
Right. And then what was the time frame? Do you remember the time frame between like when you started writing and when things started to go so upside down that you were like, okay, I'm ready for that retreat that I didn't want to go to?
Yeah, within days, within weeks.
Yeah.
It was fast.
Good.
Because like you said, I went back to that girl and there was a huge part when you say there wasn't the readiness. I went back to that little girl who I thought that I could just say all the things he did, almost like a list that would make her understand. And once I started writing, I realized, no, this is a love story. Like, I have to write how I fell in love
Mm.
and how I fell into it, not just, so be aware of A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Mhm.
Red flags. This wasn't a red flag book. This was like, your reader needs to fall in love with him the same way you did when he walked into that house for the first time. And I think that that was the part that I was so not ready for, like you
Mm.
say. And when I started diving back into that, it was almost like, I don't know the right word, but it was almost, I got so caught up in it again.
Mm.
Like writing all of those scenes and those scenarios, I was falling again for
Mm.
him in the writing. And then it came to that first point, right? That first point of control where you realize like, whoa, he was really out of line. Now I'm writing my first red flag. And I was coming home from school one night, and something that this guy always had me do, one of the red flags, was I had to check in like all the time. Like, ran into the store to go to the bathroom, like ridiculous. Again, the things I'm worried of being judged for, right? Like, how could you really think that that was right? But it was like always checking in all the time, where I was, how long I was places, things like that. And I remember I came home from school and I had just been writing at school, and I called my coach, my sis, And I was just working through some things on the way home, and I didn't text my hubby. Were we married? No, we were living together, engaged, not married. And I didn't text him that I was on my way home. And it was like raining outside, and I just walked in the door, and he was like, "Oh, you didn't text me." And I was like, "I don't have to fucking text you. I don't have to check in with you. Who are you to tell me I have to? What are you even expecting right now? Like, how dare you tell me I need to check in with you?" Well, that was regular for him and I. Like, "Hey, I'm on the road. I should be home in 20 minutes. If I'm not, be worried," right? Like, that was normal for him and I. Not, "I went to the bathroom 20 minutes ago" type stuff, but just, "Hey, I'm on the road. This is safe." And he was just like, he just went pale. He had no idea what the hell just happened. And neither did I, really. And, again, the sweet love bomb that he is, God, this man was literally designed to walk with me through my healing process. Comes in with a glass of wine, and it's like, "Baby, I'm so sorry. Did I say something wrong?" Like, it was raining outside. I was really worried. And that was when I realized I'm reliving my story in a very real way. And it's not going to be fair to this angel of a man if I continue to write these red flags and then treat him like he just did it to me. And my coach told me from the very beginning, "I think you should do this retreat before you start writing." And I was like, "No, no, 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 you don't understand. It's flowing." I have my title. I have all these chapters already outlined. Like, I got this. And, just that sound voice of reason in the background, like, "Okay, just call me." And yeah, I remember calling you that next day and saying, "Okay, I surrender. I'll go to this retreat. It's probably going to make me say a bunch of things in front of a bunch of people that I don't want to do, but sure." And that's where I met my pastor and the mom and the sex therapist, as we know in my chapter. So
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that, because that was a really big I feel like you had shared some of the most important details of, like, but more like in broad strokes with people, right? Like, it's different to say, "I experienced these abusive and controlling behaviors." It's quite another to be in a space where you're actually going back to look at the specific behaviors and the words that were used and the details that are required to write a story and share a story and make it honest. That requires a whole other level of courage to just, like, do that, but then to share it with people. um what was that process like for you? Because whether people listening who've been through a journey like this, whether they're going to a retreat to learn how to write their story or not, or they're just um sharing the story for the first time with someone, I think it's really important that they hear from you, like, what was that like? I mean, you had your big sister in the room, but you didn't know anyone else really.
no,
So
I didn't. Um, I didn't know anybody well at that retreat. And having my big sis in the room, that was scary too, because I lied to you for so many years. And, you know, when I refer to him as a master of illusion, I refer to him as that because he taught me how to create illusions
mm,
for everybody in my life. And you were one of those people. And um when I was standing up there, was the prompt was to write a storyboard. And shocker, pull out the most distinctive moments of your journey and what you think you're going to share in this book. And so I tried to outline it as best as I could. What was that first moment of impact when he walked into that room? And then what was like the first secret? right? And, you know, when was the first time I felt that, like, is this okay? And when was that first moment I lost myself and started to trail it along? And I was raised in a very conservative Christian environment. Went to private school my whole life. I'm being careful with my words. Filter. um, I was just, again, being careful with my words. The words beaten keep coming to me, like beaten with this belief system of save yourself until marriage and all the things, and embracing yourself is shameful and your body and all of it. So when I met him, it was like the first time I ever even talked really to a boy or had any type of idea of intimacy. And I didn't have any idea, let's be real. I didn't know what anything was. I learned everything for the first time with him. And so there was so much shame that I couldn't even get under it. It was like I had so much shame. Shame, feeling like I betrayed my God and my belief system and all that I knew. And then shame that I fell for it. And then shame that I didn't get out of it sooner. It was just like shame showed up all the time. And one of the first cards, well, one of the first, but one of the cards that I pulled, that I just couldn't share. And I remember, like, honestly trying to, like, pull it off of the board behind my back so that I never
saw you do that.
Yeah. I was like, it's just gonna just take that one off the board. Because nobody there was really my age, right? I mean, I was probably the youngest at that retreat. And so it was all a lot of, like, in my opinion, like, strong, entrepreneurial women. Like, here I am, this little heathen that went behind her parents' back and hid everything and really fucked herself up by doing all the things, and hiding and lying. And so anyways, the card that I pulled was virginity. And that's still a story that's not written into that book because of how hard it is. I'm hoping my fancy coach over there finds a way around having to share it for what it was. But
oh, you should know better than that by now.
Yeah.
You think she's gonna find you a way around that? You're going right through that shit. She's gonna stir it up, and you're gonna. She's not gonna part the shit sea for you at all.
All right, it's over. Bye, guys. No, I pulled that card, and I stated a little of what that meant for me, right? And how that happened for me. And Teddy here just like her floodgates just broke open. And again, we didn't know each other at the time. And Mandy says, "Hey, Pastor, do you want to share what's going on for you right now?" And I was just like, oh my freaking gosh. She just said pastor? She didn't tell me that there was going to be a pastor at this? Like, those were all my secrets. Like, I just said all the things that I never want anybody to know, And you spoke to my inner child that day.
I can feel it right now, Cece, because I was sitting there looking at a 12-year-old child. You're only 19, maybe had turned 20, but I don't think so yet. I was looking at a 12-year-old child trying to tell this story with so much shame, as if it was just you made these choices. Not at the time, you did not like have a real, you had some kind of knowledge, but you did not have any idea. I looked over at Amanda, and you know, of course she was a mess, and I'm thinking, this child thinks this is her fault. This child thinks she did all this, and not that this was done to her. It's like you had no idea at that point that this was done to you. And I mean, my heart was just overcome with so much love, because you come to understand the master of illusion and all that, but I don't think you had those words at that. You were that 12-year-old girl telling your story from a position, I'm this bad girl, I did these wrong things and like that. And so anyway, yes, I had to speak. I had to speak to that child, take you and say, no, this was not your fault. You are beautiful, you are loved, you are perfect, you know. Yes.
And that was
And I speak that to you right now too. You are one of the most powerful people. I was shocked at your power. I love the story about power, but anyway, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, you were just, you know, one of the most powerful ways God showed up for me at that retreat. But then there was another woman who was like falling apart in the back, and it was Cheryl, and her daughter had just walked through something so similar. And she was like that bulldog mom that unfortunately I hid so much from my mom. She didn't have a chance to be the bulldog. I had her fooled just the way he wanted me to. But she was that bulldog mom that was like, nope, nope. She charged right onto that field and she grabbed her daughter and she took her right out of it and saved her years of what could have been horrible for her. And realized that there were years that things had already happened that she didn't get to save her from. And so she had her own shame about that as a mom. And so I had these eyes into a mom's perspective, because a lot of my shame and my guilt was just like, I betrayed my mom. And her and I had to work through some stuff for years after all the truth came out, you know. And so having that person in the room that really spoke to my innocence, like you said, was so helpful. And then it wasn't until the next day, because we went through and, you know, we shared, like, the body trauma came up and we finished the storyboard and we talked about what was going on in my current relationship and how, you know, I was going to need to seek a counselor because writing the story started triggering body memories that I didn't even know existed. And I didn't have much of an appetite the next morning, and my roommate said, do you want me to bring you a plate? And I was like, no, you know, I'm okay. And she said, I just want you to know that I'm a therapist and I specialize in like body healing, and, you know, I'm a sex therapist and I might really be able to help you if you ever need it. You just call me. And I'm just like, talk about full circle, right? From the spiritual to to the body. I mean, I was fully supported at that retreat and it was so divine. You just can't make it up.
Yeah.
Did I answer that question? I don't even
You
know where.
did. You did. It was a big deal. It was a big retreat. And it was you know, I tell in my part of our story, and you can't make this story up, is like the people who showed up for you showed up for me too. Like Teddy was a few retreats in, having watched me take my deep breaths, my deep facilitator breaths, like, you know, the ones that are imperceptible to everyone in the room who's overwhelmed with their own story, but someone who's paying attention to the facilitator sees it, right? Like, oh, something just hit her sideways. Okay, how can I be of support in this room? And so Teddy was a few retreats in by this point, and starting to offer that type of space for me to do my level of processing. And I had told them walking into the retreat that I didn't know, because as much, while you were sharing while you were having your shame show, right? I was too, while trying to hold the space and keep it safe, because I was like the big sister who, how the hell did I not see that? Like, as you're telling the story, I'm remembering these moments that I had that little like, ooh, what was that? Like, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't connect it to the possibility of you being in this relationship. Like, but I just, and my big sister senses were like, something's not right. And I think every once in a while I would ask a question and you would give one of your answers. And I would just be like, I don't think that was it, but I don't know how to, like, I don't even know what this is. And so we were both having shame shows at the same time. And so the unbelievable support that showed up in that room with Teddy and Cheryl had been in freaking hard rooms with me before, facilitating transformation for teens, right? So like, I trusted Cheryl to be able to step in as a facilitator, but then I was like, oh, great, she has her own story, like, and so we were all like so perfectly supported through that process. And it was an amazing. So you left that retreat feeling how? Like,
Well, there was something else that Cheryl really pointed out at that retreat that um, was so pivotal for me. And as I was going through my timelines and my events and the things that I did behind my parents' back with the people I was doing them, she pointed out that it wasn't just a him and me thing, that his friends were doing the same things with my friends. And she called it like a pack of silence. And that was something that really shattered shit for me because I thought I was special. I thought I was the unique one that he was going to risk it all for and be with this underage, this young girl. And he really made me believe that I was unique and special in that. And really, they were just passing all my friends around without me even realizing it. All his older friends, when I would sneak out with her, she would go with one of them. And it was that realization that really took me taking responsibility for everything out of it. It was like, oh shit, you're right. Like Tammy said, I wasn't just this bad girl that made all these bad choices. It was we were being fooled. We were so young. And so you asked what that was like leaving that retreat. I wish I could say that I was like so inspired, but it wasn't. I was terrified. And I was like, I just don't want to do any of this anymore. Like, because I don't want to break this sweet angel that I have at home. Like, how much can this man endure? He was already going through his own stuff. We were in court and we were dealing with stuff on his side of things. And I was supporting him in so many ways. And then I just cracked and fell apart. And, I just kind of wanted to run from it again. And I was like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I got my answers. You're right. It wasn't all my fault. I had my part in it. I took responsibility, and the rest he was horrible. Okay, we'll move on. And I'll move on happily with this angel sent for me. And it doesn't work like that either, unfortunately. So even when you put the book down and you're like, nope, fuck it, you're still living it. And I suffered from really bad post-traumatic stress when I came back from that retreat. I was waking up with nightmares and sweats. I was screaming at him in my sleep. I finally sought a therapist after a lot of pushing. And again, this sweet angel who's not even committed to me, like for life, right? Like he can walk away at any point in time from this crazy mess. Just said, I'm not walking away. Like, we're gonna go and you're gonna get what you need. And I'll adjust. And there were a lot of adjustments he had to make and a lot of sacrifices. And he did it. And so what followed the retreat was a couple years of therapy. Thank you, Andy. And and then moments of inspiration where I'd want to dive back into it because again, people would show up in my life and I realized they were the people who needed my book.
Mm.
And so I'd get so mad at myself, like, ugh! If I hadn't run or I hadn't given up, my book would already be here and I could literally just hand it to this girl instead of trying to have all these hard conversations out of the blue with this stranger. And then my stepdaughter grew up. And another part of my story, I guess I should share is that my husband now, he had a daughter when I met him and she was just turned 6 when I met her. And so she was also like such a pivotal part of my healing because what a beautiful reflection of innocence and just purity on all levels and inside out. And she just loved me, like just loved me. When I say they were a love bomb, it was like God couldn't have put more love in my life for this season. It was, it was unconditional. Even despite the weird conversations of, mommy and this and that. And even despite what we were going through, it was like, she just reflected back to me everything I gave to her. And her love was just magical for me. So we grew and we have a wonderful relationship, her and I. And she started to grow into the age of where I was, right? She turned 12. She started having crushes and
Oh, did she freeze?
Yeah, I think so.
did I
There you
disconnect?
are. You froze out for a second.
Yeah.
We heard that
Zapping it like
she,
Nikki.
she got to be about 12 years old. And I think this is really super important for people to hear how this happens because I'm certain that I have seen research. I can't point people to it, but so often when there's a trauma that happens for us that is either buried or just something that we don't want to look at and have kind of like tried to live on top of, when our kids get to that age, it becomes almost unbearable for us to not face it, or else we end up doing significant damage to our kids because of our own stories around what might be happening for them. So she turns 12 and you're
And
realizing,
I'm terrified that all the things that happened to me are going to happen to her.
yeah.
And we have this added layer of only having her part-time and all these things, right? So I have like less time, less influence, less knowing of what's going on when I'm not around. And now, I mean, as we grew, I realized that she was given so many more tools. Well, because again, like you said, I had to deal with it, right? So there's a lot of 911 calls to Mandy. But all the stuff started hitting the fan with when she started having crushes and dates, or just all of it. And now she's dating for the first time. She's 17 now. But I'm not worried now. And it's because like I shared my story with her.
Mm.
And didn't do that when she was 12, so don't panic. But but I shared parts of it, I shared the feelings of when somebody made me feel a certain way. And then I started meeting her friends. And it was like we raised this amazing little woman. I mean, she's the antithesis of what I was in those ages. She's confident, she's strong. She doesn't give any damns what people think about her. Like, she's just like knows who she is and she loves who she is and everything you could ask for in a kid. But her friends, they were just hurting. And I mean, we live in Orange County, and I just feel like maybe it's particular to our area, maybe it's just part of the world now, but there's not many of those kids that have parents that love each other or that even have their exact parents, right? And so many of them are missing dads. And that lack of like a father, so that threw me into a whole bunch more shit. I thought I had the best dad in the world, right? It did in so many ways. But there was a lot lacking too, in acknowledgement of me and my strength and my beauty and all of the things that my husband has been so great about making sure Jade knows about herself. And so then I realized, like, I got to get back into my story. Like, these kids need my book. They need it. And, you know, I always pictured it being like something that saved me. And I think this is important. I'm glad I remembered to share this. Something that saved me leading up to my breakup, and leading up to me liberating myself was Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series. And it might sound silly, but that love story was like what got me free. Because it's crazy, because my parents, they loved each other. Like, they had a great marriage. It's not like I didn't experience love. But at that tender age of what you're trying to figure out love is, it's not what you see marriage as. It's not you see these people putting in time together, making a life, making stuff happen. It's like the caresses on the cheek and the babies and all the things that he wasn't giving me. And when I experienced Stephenie Meyer's characters giving that love to each other, it turned something on in me. And I was like, I deserve this. I can find this. This exists. I'm over here doing what I'm doing. This is ridiculous. You know, I still remember post-it noting one of those books, and I was so mad at my ex. I remember throwing it at him at the couch, and I was like, why don't you fucking learn something? And that was when I started really gaining traction and realizing that there was something more out there than what he was giving me. And so that series saved my life. And so when I started seeing this with my daughter's friends, I'm like, they need a series like that tells what really happens, what can happen. And so that was that's what I'm going to do with my book. And I'm going to make it this love story, right? Like how we spoke about in the beginning, when I realized that I needed to make them fall in love with him the way I did. And in a lot of ways, I feel like they're all grown up. They're not, but they feel like they are, all her friends. I mean, I've been mama bear to all these little chicks for, 6 or 8 years now, a little friend group, and God, they're getting hurt. And I have shame again. Like, just figured out how to overcome your shit and write your book. They'd have that right now, because now I'm like, I don't want to say like I've aged out, but I'm not like their best bud anymore. I'm not cool anymore. I'm just Mama Goody. Like, I'm not their best friend anymore. And we should talk about the skincare piece, right? That I have been able to connect more deeply with a lot of them, by helping them with their skin and by doing treatments and having that time in the room and by doing check-ins and like, oh, so what's going on with this person and that. But it's not enough. And I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm like really realizing that it's not enough. I'm happy that that I have a knowledge and a way and a gift now as a specialist to be able to make them feel better in their skin, and that they can actually, wash their face and look in the mirror and love what they're seeing better and more. But it's not enough. And I think that's why this is scary for me. I think that's why the You Can't Make This Shit Up is actually happening, and it's launching next month, and it's gonna be out there.
Mhm.
And girls know everything that's out there. So they're all gonna see it, and they're all gonna ask about it. And I wish I just had a book to hand them instead of reliving it over and over again right now like this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, like I was saying at the beginning, we have these ideas about where the book is going to go and who it's going to help and how big it'll be and the difference that it will make. And we attach like an identity of who we know we have to be in order to do that to it, right? And so but there's also this thing about like the time that it actually takes to heal from a situation like yours, a trauma like yours. There's the reality of like the rest of life happening and deciding to get married and wanting to have children and needing to put food on the table and figure out what career you want to. So like you're in your 20s, like a lot of times people are starting this in their 30s or 40s or 50s, right? They're doing that like turnaround legacy work later. So life has already been built. There's already like enough stability to kind of,
mhm.
And you didn't really have that. And so it's time to do that. So I'd love for you to share kind of what that process was like for you, in as much as, having this idea and realizing like there were all these other things that need to be done, and how have those been part of the journey of your message?
Jeez. The whole decade of my 20s.
Well, I mean, in broad strokes, you got married and you got to work on all of that relationship stuff, right? Like how to be in a relationship that doesn't have ickiness at the core of it, right? That has real love. And then what about your career? Like you were in school when you were deciding to write this book. So what ended up happening with all that?
Well, so much of the trajectory of my future at that point was based off of my plans with the old, right? Like he was the one who was like graduate high school early. He was the one that was like pushing me into a degree that I just chose out of necessity because he was pushing me and trying so hard to get me to graduate early and do everything faster. And so then when I met this man who was like, "But what do you want? Like, you like this? You like what you're going to school for?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been going to school for so long. I'm not even, there's looking back is just not even an option for me to change at this point." So I did. I finished my degree in journalism. Um, didn't take me long in the field to know that I did not like it. Um, and yeah, like you said, events just rolled me through having to constantly, there's, you don't realize when you get out of an abusive relationship how much grief is going to hit you. And, you're grieving the person you could have been. You're grieving the person that you lost. You're grieving the human that you left, right? Like there were good parts of him. And you're grieving the family. Like I was so attached to his family and all the friends. I left When I left him, I left everything. I didn't have any friends outside him. I had one who I had pushed away so far. I didn't know if I was going to get her back. And so this theme of grief was like something that I was not dealing with. And God found his way to get to me, right? Like, deal with this shit, Ciara. And that was by more grief. Unfortunately, I miscarried my first pregnancy, and that was really hard. And then I lost my dad, and then I lost my grandma, and then I lost my dog. And it was just like my skin was so out of control. I was self-medicating. I was drinking, not in a like by myself on the couch with a bottle of whiskey way, but in like a let's just go out. Let's just keep our mind off things. And I was smoking cannabis, and I was just self-medicating to keep myself away from all that grief. And it's like grief's just a funny thing. It just layers. It just layers. So like you touch on losing your dad, and then you realize, and I still lost that little girl, and then you touch on losing the dog, and you realize that dog was my surrogate baby, and I never grieved my miscarriage, and like it just can be overwhelming. So my skin was just like taking the rap. And it's something I tell my clients and my patients and my girls all the time, that your skin is the only barrier between the inside of you and the outside of you. And if there's something going on the inside, you're going to see it because your skin's trying to get you to pay attention to it. And so that was when I was like, I'm going to go get my esthetician license and see if I can fix this. Also another distraction, right? Like I'm just a very
Hey,
I'm a very productive person.
we were raised to be high performers, right? Like we see a problem, we're all about fixing it.
Yeah. Unless the problem is us. And then we find every other problem we can fix. Instead of the one we see when we wash our face every morning. But I decided to go get my skincare license, and it didn't do much for me. I mean, God, school was just a distraction. I didn't learn too much that really helped. And it wasn't until I became an acne specialist and I got further education that I realized how much of an inside job your skin is. And I had to start addressing all the things, right? And another thing that I was pushed into was this one spirit medicine cleanse. And it was like 40 days without all the things, like all the things, the sugar, the caffeine, gluten, dairy, everything.
Potatoes?
You're
Even
talking about
potatoes.
this and self-medicating, and I'm over here just like chugging dark chocolate because I just can't even handle it.
I know. I didn't bring snacks because I knew
It's
I
a
was.
good thing I can't reach mine.
So I became an acne specialist, and then I started learning, like, I did this cleanse that Mandy really, really, really encouraged me to do in order to kind of just find homeostasis and find a balance and find how my body operates without all the things that affect it so much. And those substances really put you into a state of fight or flight. And so for a victim, fight or flight is dangerous. So that cleanse really pushed me into the gut conversation, right? And then becoming an acne specialist, it's everything we focus on. It's not just like, here are these products, they're going to change your life. It's like, so what's going on at home, you know? And I have clients just like, whoop, like, nope, not what I signed up for. I'll buy the products, but I don't want to do any of the other things, which is what they tell me on a regular basis. I mean, I have a very stubborn coworker right now who's just like, I'll do everything you say except for what you want me to do with my body. Well, I'll still be here, but I won't take responsibility for the things you won't take responsibility for. And we actually just had that conversation at work yesterday. And she just kind of like gulped and looked at me like, did you just say that to me? She's kind of my higher upper. But I do answer to her. But as her specialist, you know, that's something that you learn with this is you have to take responsibility of your choices. So you can imagine how that throws you all back into the choice of running, right? And so it's made it a huge pivotal point with my patients because, you know, I share that with them. Like my acne was at its worst when I lost my dad. And that was after, you know, a lot of other grief that I wasn't paying attention to, losing my baby and everything. So, it's been beautiful and empowering and hard. It's so hard. And, you know, I'm like doing virtual programs now for people because COVID closed my room. And it is so hard to be in this work with people. It's not just, you know, check-ins like, okay, we're going to up level this ingredient. It's like, what's going on for you right now? And I take a lot of pride in that being what makes my business so different. But it's no surprise that next month the book launches and I'm feeling anxious and ready to jump out of what I'm doing. And again, it's not like leave it all behind, just what I've learned. It's take what you know and let's apply it better elsewhere. To honor myself, which is the lesson that I should have learned early on in my 20s. That don't sit in stuff that's not honoring you in that moment. Move through it, grab your angels, and then take what you've learned and go to the next thing. And so I feel like I'm very much at that point. I'm excited for what's coming next year. I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes. And, you know, the little shame CC, or that's my nickname, little shame CC pops up and is like, oh, Cher, yeah, you're going to get the book done next year. Okay. You say every year. But it's this readiness, like I spoke about in the beginning, where it's like, you know, and it's no surprise with the state I'm in that I'm feeling ready to make sure that my story's out there and that my future, you know, little ones have it and that their friends have it. And so, yeah, I don't think that answered your question about the decade of my 20s so much, but
it does. It's all important. And, you know, from the outside looking in, you know, to me, I mean, look, some people get into this process and they think they want to write a book, and really all they need to do is heal their story and they're good. They go back to whatever it was that they were going to do, you know, before the trauma kind of talked them out of it. And sometimes there's just like the time, the readiness, like, you know, even with all the healing that you have done in the last decade, the writing of the book is not going to be easy, but your relationship is stronger, your home situation is stronger, your extended family is stronger, you know, like there's so much that's happened. Also, you know, looking at what you've done in the realm of growing your audience, like all of the people that you have supported over the last decade who you've shared your story with in some small part are out there waiting for the book. And as soon as it's out there, you know, the following has been being built. Like usually people write the book and then are like, oh crap, I don't have a following to like buy this thing, right? Like during COVID, I watched you, you know, answer the prayers, the cries for help from heroes on the front line who were like stressing out about what was going on with their skin underneath masks, right? And you developed this entire, it was a movement that you developed when the world was falling apart. And you know, all of those things you have proven to me and everyone else that as soon as this book gets out, like the exact right people who are supposed to be in your life to help you get it where it's supposed to go have been positioned. Like they're waiting. And that's not in any way to tap the shame. It's a way of looking at like, wow, look at how this is being all set up for you. That all the delays and detours that you have been thinking were, you know, things to be upset about might actually be all the things that were necessary to make it go where it's meant to go.
Yeah, you're so right. And that's something that, you know, we've always experienced in this tribe and in this circle. It's not like you can ever really connect the dots forward, but you look back and they make sense. They're all connected. And God, even when you just said like your relationship is stronger, it's like, yes. This book came out 5 years ago. I don't know if I'd have the husband I have today.
Right.
But, you know, he's dealt with this crazy bitch long enough.
Now he's stuck with you. He's not going anywhere, no matter how hard it gets, right?
Got him locked
Yeah.
in 10 years deep. Oh,
Oh, that's
but
good.
yeah, and I think that itself puts me at a lot of just that one component, even though there's so many more, like you said, like my daughter is stable and so healthy and so ready for the world and ready to graduate high school and move out. And, you know, we don't have all that background noise and courts and all the things. And so it is time to really look at what's been set up for me. And I'm feeling it. And I'm sure tomorrow I'm going to be like, blah, I'm all upside down. Thanks for the podcast. That's why I say no to these things.
You think that's gonna last until you're gonna get until tomorrow? I'm expecting the text by this evening.
Hopefully by the time Alan goes to work. It's a nice little breakfast. But
No.
yeah, I'm excited.
No, it's a journey, and I hope that that's what listeners and viewers are taking away from this is like, you know, just because you had one idea of how you were intending to help people doesn't mean that while you're in the healing process, you're not also helping a lot of people. Like, don't get so attached to the identity of, you know, reaching this many people with this many numbers and this many followers and this many books sold. Like, who you are being today is doing something in the world, and your story can make a difference while you're giving someone a facial or cutting their hair or whatever you're doing between, you know, here and your book being finished. It's really, really important to take that. And even for the people who only take 6 months or only take a year or whatever the case may be, like the same is true.
Yeah.
It's all happening as part of preparing you for what's ahead. So
True.
You know, I think that in this conversation of timing, you know, we'll come full circle here. I really appreciate at the beginning that you didn't share that I was that girl that you wanted to save from getting into an abusive situation at the time. And I think it's important for our listeners, you know, that although that I had ended up not getting into that abusive situation at that point, I later did at 21 years old after, you know, we lost our father and everything. And now I've been free of that for 2 years. I was in it for 2 years, free of it for 2 years. And it's no coincidence that for the first time in a long time, I saw him last night. I went out dancing to celebrate for my birthday and saw him. And he was with a girl. And when I say girl, I mean girl. Like, she was so very young. And he's older. He's much older than I am. And she was clearly much younger than I am. And the rage and the fury that comes up when you see that, I understand, I understand now where you were at that point. And I'm fortunate that a lot of our journey has been like that over the years.
Me taking the beatings?
No, not necessarily. You taking the beatings before me. And then when I go through the beatings, I'm like, oh, hey, beating is not the right word here. We shouldn't be using that.
You can edit that part out.
So
right?
lightly, metaphorically, kind of, but
Ooh.
no. And in terms of timing, where I'm at with starting the second book in my series and what that's going to be about, I think it's going to be really cool that we'll be writing those books alongside each other this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I just had this realization that y'all need to we need to have a specific space regularly, because
The rage room.
we need a rage room, right? But also imagine the rewrite that, and this, the tagline for the business is writing truer individual and collective stories. And part of that collective is that when we write truer individual stories, it affects the opportunities of all of the generations that come after. Like Ciara has shared, even not even her own child biologically, she has completely changed the trajectory of that child's life from what could have been had you not been there when she was 12 and starting to feel all the feelings and make all of the decisions, right? And share your story. And so, taking all the beatings, the truth is that the ones who go before, we do. We're the ones, in the unknown, usually feeling a lot by ourselves, cutting the path. And it is freaking hard, but it's worth it, because when you turn around and you look behind you, people can run a lot faster than you were, standing in place for a long time trying to cut down that part of the path. And so I'm just whoa, the generational stuff. I feel like maybe we should warn all of our family members about what's going to happen, because y'all are writing through similar stories. Maybe it'll be time for me to work on Upside Down Grace, and we'll just hole up in a cabin
for a year.
Hole up in a cabin for a month and just get this stuff done. I don't know. That could be fun or crazy. We'll have to pull in all of our people.
They're not mutually exclusive.
They are not,
in my opinion.
That's a wild idea. All three of us working on a novel in the same year.
I am so down to not spend 4 years writing the next novel and do it in a week or two. That'd be great.
In a week or two. Well.
Reality check.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. First time I did my makeup in over 2 months, and
Y'all need to we need to hydrate.
We do.
Just lost a lot of water.
You're right.
Or coffee. Sips.
More sips.
To the young and wise.
Yeah. Well, Ciara, I want to make sure that people know how to connect with you after this. I know we could keep talking, and I know that you'll be back on and, we'll share more as the story goes and as your book process unfolds. Maybe we'll do like special little check-ins on this crazy idea of three sisters writing novels around the same theme at the same time. Like that could be insane. But in the meantime,
I'm already thinking about what to do with the husbands during that time. They're gonna need added support.
they're gonna need support. Yeah, we're gonna have to.
With Aaron. There you go, Aaron. Aaron's got this.
We'll be getting texts from Aaron. Okay, guys, we need you to come back just for a day. I just need to go.
Mayday, mayday. Abandoned plan. You did not set them up enough.
Oh my. So how do people connect with you? Because, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are like, oh, shoot, my skin and my stress. Maybe I need to contact Ciara to start working on some of this stuff. So how can they connect with you?
My website has a contact page, so you can go there. It's www.suityourself.me. Or my email is info@suityourself.me. I'm pretty readily available by that. Instagram, I'm super responsive on direct messaging. So my Instagram handle is Suit Yourself Skincare. And yeah, you can contact any of these beautiful ladies.
And gentlemen.
And yes, and gentlemen. It's gonna happen a lot in the circle.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ciara. I know that it wasn't easy, that it was anxiety inducing. How are you feeling now?
Oh, I already know how I'm feeling now. Now it's like that nice little relief, a little bit of endorphins, feel really good for the next few hours.
And then the work begins.
Yeah.
Right?
Then
Yeah.
goes
The
to
next level.
sit down with it. No, I'm feeling really good. I feel because a lot of stuff has been building up these last couple months, I've been kind of MIA on social media. So I get back on there and face what I've been facing for the last couple months, and talking about this launch and talking about sharing my story for the first time. And so yeah, I'm sure as soon as I make that video, all my shit will hit the fan.
All right. Well,
Woo!
you got a bunch of people standing by with wipies. Like we're good.
We
We're
love
so
shit
good at
big
that.
fans around here.
Yeah, like a whole
It's actually our specialty. I think I just found our tagline.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
I can transfer you to the shit hit the fan section. Okay. That's so well, you better answer my call later, Mandy.
I will. I'll be standing by all day. I got you.
Always do.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and being willing to breathe through the anxiety and keep talking through the tears. I definitely think that a lot of people are going to take their first step of freedom after listening to your story. So thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. If you like what you heard, please consider subscribing, leaving us a review, and maybe even sharing like the biggest you can't make this story up moment that you heard today, or maybe a choice that you're going to make to take some of your power back. We'd love to hear all of it. You can also find more details about our upcoming collaborative book in which Ciara shares her story. You can't make this story up. What if it's all happening for us? Because it is, at truetointention.com. See you next time. Bye.